Estenzo.
Hello, everyone. My name is Estenzo, and I was in the United States Marine Corps Reserves from '99 to 2005. I was with 4th Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion. I did one tour in Iraq in March 2003 and ended in September of 2003. I was activated for a year, and I also did in the reserves what we call active duty special work. So I've essentially done 2 years worth of active duty with the United States Marine Corps Reserves. And while I was in country, within the final 3 weeks of tour in country, I had a non-combat injury, and I was told by our battalion aid station officers that if I tell anyone that I had my back injury in country, that I would stay in country or I'd go to Germany, which would be in my best interest to not say anything until we get back to Camp Pendleton. So I thought that that was guidance from people who know what they're doing, so I figured that that would be the best thing to do. So I waited, injured, without my command even knowing that I was injured, and not even my platoon sergeant at the time, and I was a Lance Corporal when I was out there, that I had a back injury. And again, you know, this is about trusting the guidance that I received from people who knew what they were doing. So I went back to Camp Pendleton and immediately sought care with the Navy Medical Center. And their response was actually outstanding. It was the day that I reported my back injury that it was the next day that I was actually seen. And I was getting therapy, and I thought that this was great. I served my country, and I did my tour in Iraq, and I'm being taken care of. And that is exactly what I expected. I expected a two-way system here where, you know, I serve and then they support, and vice versa. So it was great at the time. I mean, I thought that everything was working out for me. So then became my time of discharge, where I was honored to be discharged in 2005. And again, I looked forward to the new chapter in my life, although my command really liked me and they thought that having my leadership and experience with the unit would further enhance the mission and also give good guidance to some Marines out there that were going to deploy. And I did miss a GWAT tour and another redeployment to Iraq because of my back injury. And it lasted until 2005, until I got out. So my medical paperwork was transferred over to the VA healthcare system. And at the time, I was in garrison at Camp Pendleton. They had told me what was going to happen. They had pretty much outlined it, told me that my medical records would be transferred and the VA healthcare system will take care of me. And there was all of this good information that led me to believe that I was going to be taken care of. And again, I really entrusted in the system. So I then got out of the military and became a full-time student and enrolled in it was Long Beach VA healthcare system. And that's where I began to see the realities of what it truly means to be in the VA healthcare system. Unfortunately, it took a very long time to figure out what was wrong with my back. In fact, when I say very long, I'm still getting checked out for it. In fact, when I say that I'm still getting checked out for it, I haven't even gotten past the paperwork process. And I haven't even gotten a checkout yet. I've gotten x-rays and MRIs, which I thought was making headway, but that's where it ended. I'm still needing to get therapy. And I didn't understand why there was such a delay in this problem. Like, what's the issue? It just didn't make sense. Like, I was expected to have the service continue now that I'm a civilian, and I was just getting paperwork and talk and counseling about how I should conduct myself now that I'm a civilian. And that's kind of where it ended. So from 2005 until 2006, I was dealing with a disability claim where they were sending me letters saying that we're still working on my disability claim, they're still working on my disability claim. And I was a full-time student. I wasn't able to work because of my back injury. I did find a part-time weekend job where I found out that it was much harder to deal with a civilian job now than it was before. I had adjustment issues. I needed to see a psychiatrist. I needed to get some kind of counseling to figure out what's going on with me, because at the time I didn't think PTSD was an issue. So they informed me that I did have 2 years worth of free medical service, but with the way things were going, with the way the appointment setting was going, and the amount of time I was actually seeing someone wasn't really working out. The ratio was like 30 minutes to an hour of seeing somebody, but the appointments would be set up for like a month or 2 months later. And because I was a full-time student, it was even worse, because then I would have to reschedule if I missed the appointment. If I missed the appointment in 30 minutes, the doctor would no longer be available, and I'd have to reschedule, so that meant another 2 months. So 2 years worth of medical service is nothing. It just doesn't work out. And I then realized that adjusting to civilian life was going to be much more challenging, and it's because I was a full-time student that it didn't really dawn on me until I got my AA degree, and I was again optimistic about trying to reach into higher goals and move on into my new chapter of my life. And again, I was still dealing with the VA healthcare system, which was more of a roadblock than anything else. I graduated. I figured that I should go back to my hometown. I'm originally from Hawaii. So I went back to Hawaii. I saw some family there. I didn't really speak about my situation. It was very uncomfortable for me to disclose my military experience or my situation with my family. Came back, and 14 days later, realized that finding a job was much harder than expected, and most of the jobs I found weren't going to pay enough. And I did leave the military with $17,000 saved, good credit. I was a good Marine, and I served honorably. I never questioned anything about the integrity of my service to country, and the services that I was receiving until I went into the VA healthcare system. And it was then that some things were just not working out for me. I heard about Iraq Veterans Against the War through a friend of mine, Jeff Key, who also served alongside of me. He's also from 4th Line Armored Reconnaissance. We touched bases when I was already in this situation where I don't think I was gonna be able to help myself. So the $17,000 that I saved went to zero, expenses built to such an extent that they were overwhelming, and I couldn't pay it anymore. I was having adjustment issues with jobs. Jobs weren't paying enough. My credit score went very low. It's now at fair. And I was again finding myself in a very bad situation. And I couldn't believe that this is exactly how Vietnam veterans must have felt when they came back home. Jeff Key lived in Hollywood at the time. I gave him a call. He wasn't home. But he did have somebody that was house sitting for him. So he told me if I go over to his place, I'd be able to stay there. So this was considered couch surfing, which at the time I wasn't even thinking that I was homeless. So I stayed at his place, but it wasn't immediate because the person that was house sitting wasn't there all the time. So I ended up sleeping in my car for one day. I was in Hollywood. I decided to walk around, see if I could find some jobs. And I reached this corner. Can't remember the name of the block, but there was a food wagon that was serving free food to homeless people. And I decided to take that opportunity to eat some free food. And at first I was thinking, I'm just hungry and this is free food and I'm gonna go for it. So I standed in line, and interesting enough, there was another social organization there with a video camera that was documenting homelessness, and it was Friends Helping Friends organization. And as I stand there watching everybody else around me and watching the people, Friends Helping Friends, document the homeless people, I looked at myself and I started thinking to myself, that I'm now an Iraq war vet. I'm standing in a line with homeless people being served free food. And this is actually happening to me. This is actually happening to our Iraq era war vets, and that I'm one of them, and I'm a casualty of that system. And at that moment in time, the reality hit, and it hit so hard that suicidal thoughts began. I broke down several times. I literally cracked the day after that, and once I was able to get back to Jeff's place, I had told him many times about ending my life because this is not exactly how I wanted it to be. I lost dignity, self-respect. My honor just went down, and I was in a very dark place for a considerable amount of time. I had a relationship with a girl that eventually went away as well. She couldn't understand the situation I was in, so I ended that relationship. And again, that was another swift blow to me. And the school situation never picked up. I ended up having to find a job that barely paid anything. And it was with Jeff that I actually found a way to pick myself back up again. It was counseling through him that I found my way back in life. And he introduced me to Iraq Veterans Against the War, and it was throughout Iraq Veterans Against the War that I found a place that would help vets recuperate and continue their lives after the military. I found a place that was very close to the school that I wanted to go to, and I was, again, surprised that the VA system wasn't going to help me even at this time of need. And I was also reluctant to go back to the system, but I was encouraged that I should, because if I don't go back to the system, then they'll never know, and that I'll be another casualty of the system. So I did go back, and unfortunately, I'm back at square one again. They still want me to fill out more paperwork. They want me to do appointments again, and they want me to start from square one. My argument to them is that my service record book, my medical record books, they all show that I have service, I have a medical injury, and that they need to somehow respond much faster than they've been doing in the past 2 years. It's been since 2005 that I got out. They're requesting that I fill more paperwork, so that's where I stand to this day.
Thank you.